engagement. And I am delighted that we have such a wonderful group together today. We are going to be providing a presentation on reporting other leave, benefits, and income. And I am joined by a lot of the collective brainpower of the department here today. I've got Greg Norfleet, who's our Deputy Director of Operations, Lisa Shepard, the Senior Manager of Operations, Aaron Olison, who's the Deputy General Counsel, Andrew Pratt, who's the Manager of Benefits and Claims, Dan Dakotas, who is our Appeals Manager, and Jess Delaconio, who is our Program Coordinator. So we're delighted to have all of our team here to answer your questions as we provide you with some updates on what we've been doing with reporting other leave, benefits, and income. I wanted to start out with a couple of housekeeping items. First, we want to thank you again for attending today's session, and we are recording this session, and the recorded version will be available for all participants. The slides are also going to be available at the conclusion of the webinar, and those will be mailed to registered attendees. If you have questions, and I know you will, please use the question and answer chat function. We'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation and send the questions as well as the answers to all registered attendees. So that's a really important note. This is a question that we get often about the materials, and please know that we will send both the link for the recording, the slides for the presentation deck, and answers to all questions and answers questions that are asked. So that will all come to you within the next few days after the presentation. It's important for you to know that all participants have been muted, and we're happy to hear what you have to say via the chat, and look forward to your comments. The other thing that we need for you to know is that we cannot provide specific information about a case. I know you all may have instances that you'd like to get our take on, and unfortunately we can't do that during this webinar. We can answer questions about policy and some general questions, but without the context of a full case, we can't respond to specific questions about cases. So I wanted to start this out by sharing a little bit of good news. We have almost completed a full year of operation. It's really hard to imagine, but just in the first 6 months, we've approved over 43,000 applications and have paid out about $168 million in benefits. And this is really an exciting time for us as we approach that 1 year mark. As you know, we started issuing benefits for family leave in January, and then in July, we started issuing benefits for caring leave. And so with the caring leave, we've already approved over 1,600 applications for benefits. So it's been a busy few months for us as we've kicked off caring leave, and we're delighted to have so many folks out there in the Commonwealth receiving benefits. Wanted to provide you with a little update with regard to the employer portal. This is something that will affect each one of you as a leave administrator. We now have an interactive dashboard that can search, sort, and filter by status as well as due date. So we have a screenshot here of what that dashboard looks like. And this is something that we're going to continue to grow. We'll be adding additional capabilities to this as the months go by, but right now you should be able to really enjoy using this to search and sort and filter by both status and due date. I also wanted to provide you with a link to our annual report, and this is something that we published in October, early October. We have compiled all the statistics about our first year of operation, and actually those statistics cover from January 1st through June 30th. So that gives us information on the family leave up till that point. So I wanted to follow that up with just a focus on what today's presentation is about. We launched the ability to report other leave, benefits, and income on the portal on July 15th. And before that date, claimants had to report their leave by calling the contact center, and employers were not able to verify information that was provided by employees without calling in. And so we added functionality that allows employers to have a much easier way to review and verify information. So we are going to continue to improve this feature, but it's something that we feel like we've made a lot of progress in. And today we really wanted to spend some time talking with you about how leaves and benefits should be reported by employees, and how you can verify this information through the employer request for information. The department now collects information on other leave, benefits, and income in part 1 of the application. And as you all probably know, this application has 3 parts, but this information is now collected through very specific questions in part 1 of that application. So what we're looking for here is information on paid or unpaid previous leaves, like FMLA or sick time that's taken for a qualifying condition. Also, we're looking for income from other programs. So this would include things like unemployment insurance and workers' comp. And lastly, we're looking for employer-sponsored benefits. And so this would include things like paid time off. I'm going to open this up to the team. Is there anything that you'd like to add here on this slide in terms of particulars?
No, the only thing really to add here, as Mary's mentioned, we are a brand new state agency. We're almost a year into operations, and we're really committed to the continuous improvement of the process and the technology that we're building to be able to help folks access paid family and medical leave. As Mary mentioned, this is a new feature that was launched on July 15th of this year. And we're still seeking ways to improve it. We've already made a couple of changes to it since it went live on July 15th, and we're going to continue to do that. But I think as we go through, we'll make sure that you all know how the process is currently working. And we really do encourage you to put into the chat or into the Q&A feature to let us know if there's anything that you're looking for in terms of other enhancements to the system that we can make.
Great, thank you, Greg. I did just want to clarify that this is the application that an employee would fill out. So we're giving you a view into what that application looks like, and just demonstrating for you that we are asking for very specific information. Previously, we had asked for information, but it was not in as much of a structured way. So it was information that was easy for somebody to miss while they were completing the application. And this is a very important piece of information for us so that we can calculate benefits that are of the right amount and also for the correct duration. So that's why we had made this change. And as Greg mentioned, we're going to continue to improve and to look for ways that information can be most easily provided. So we look forward to hearing your feedback from this, but this is just a quick view into the actual application itself. Next slide, please. All right, so we've got a couple of other screenshots here for you. I know that this is this is small, but when you receive the deck, you can take a closer look. Here, claimants are asked to report any leave that was not previously reported to the department. And they're not limited to reporting a single leave of absence, and they can report leave for a variety of reasons. So we use this information, as I said previously, to make sure that the claimant is receiving the correct benefit allotment, not only in terms of the duration of their leave, but also in terms of the amount that they are receiving. And again, some glimpses into what that application looks like for the employee as they're completing it. So claimants are also asked about other income they'll be receiving from programs during their leave. So if someone is receiving unemployment, or if they are receiving workers' comp payments, that's something that we need to know about, because their payment from the department will be offset on a dollar-by-dollar basis, or dollar-for-dollar basis, I should say. So it's really important that we know that they cannot exceed the maximum benefit amount of $850 per week. And so we need to make sure that we are making adjustments for these other benefits that they are receiving. On the other hand, other benefits, including short-term disability plans, are offset so that the individual doesn't receive more than their average weekly wage. So an employee can receive our benefit in addition to some benefit from short-term disability plans. I know that this is a big area of discussion, and so I wonder if any of our team would like to comment on that. I see a question here in the chat, and I know we're going to get to questions later. I don't want to get sidelined, but talking about sequencing with short-term disability. Is that anything that our team would like to discuss now, or shall we defer? All right, we'll take that one on later, unless, Greg, you ready?
Yeah, so the thing to keep in mind here, so with the dollar for dollar offsets that you see, this is actually the new screen that that a claimant or your employee will see when they file for paid family medical leave. We do give you this visually, the types of income that you're supposed to report to us, as well as types of income that you don't need to report to us. So one of the big areas of confusion is around short-term disability plans. So the rule is that an individual that's taking PFML can't make more while they're out between our program and the short-term disability program. That said, a lot of short-term disability programs operate as an in excess plan, so they'll pay up to the average weekly wage. In those cases, you don't actually have to tell us that. That's fine because we're not going to offset based off of the amount that you're receiving from the short-term provider, as long as that amount does not exceed their average weekly wage. So if you have a full-on short-term disability plan, or if you offer maternity leave, paternity leave, or a paid medical or paid family medical leave program as an employer that doesn't quite meet the criteria for an exemption from the program, you can tell us that, and we'll offset the benefit. And we'll also hit on how to get reimbursed for that time as well later on. But in terms of short-term disability plan and sequencing, if it's an in-excess plan, you don't actually need to tell us that that plan is going to top off your employee's wages for their time out.
Great, thank you, Greg. I know this is an area of interest, and we'll come back to this, I'm sure, in the Q&A section. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about what we're asking for here in terms of accrued paid leave. And examples of that would be vacation, sick, or personal days. So we ask about this separately from other income that an individual may receive. And it's separate because unlike other sources of potential income, PTO can only be used in replacement of PFML benefits. The department does not allow for topping off using PTO. So that's a really important thing for you to keep in mind. As much as it is something that is requested, that it's not something that is statutorily allowed. And so we will, I'm sure, talk a little bit about that during our Q&A session. It's also important for you to remember that claimants cannot be forced to use PTO during their leave. And so this includes policies that require employees to use a day of PTA to stay on their health insurance. We know that might make it easier from a bookkeeping perspective, but it is in conflict with our rules and regulations. So that is something that we cannot permit. And lastly, PTO needs to be taken in a single continuous chunk, either at the start or the end of a leave. So it's not something that can be spread out during the duration. The waiting week is fine. You can use PTO for that. That's not something that needs to be reported. In fact, we would discourage you from providing that. We're really, our objective here today is to make it very clear what you should be reporting and what should not be reporting, so that the approval process can go in the most expeditious manner possible. But here are 3 really important bullets for you to take home and remember. Again, the department does not allow for topping off using PTO. Claimants can't be forced to use the PTO during their leave, and PTO must be taken in a single continuous block, either at the start or the end of the leave. Any additional comments from our colleagues here? Greg, anything you want to add on that one?
So this is an area of confusion that we do see quite a bit on the back end of the program, where we receive somebody who will report taking or wanting to take a day of PTO during the course of their leave. And we're going to get into this in the next slide, but just to preview it, the way that the statute is written is that we are not able to have somebody go on and off of PTO during the course of their leave. So if somebody comes in and works a day during the middle of a continuous leave, or uses PTO in the middle instead of using it in a continuous block of time, the remainder of their payments will be zeroed out through the rest of their leave. So it's really important that folks know not to do that because we're not able to continue, we have to cancel all of the remaining payments on the case in those situations.
Okay, let's continue on. Please excuse me for not having the background that my colleagues do. I'm getting messages saying that my browser's a little unstable, so I'm using up too much bandwidth with that. So, all right. So here's some important information for you to share with your employees. As Greg mentioned, and we just can't say it enough, so I'm sorry for the repeat, but PTO must be used in a single continuous block of time, either at the start or the end of a leave during continuous leave. And if an individual takes PTO, even one single day during their leave after receiving benefits, the remaining payments will be canceled. So this is something that is critical that you convey to your employees. And then also during a reduced or intermittent schedule, PTO can only be taken when the individual is not receiving paid family and medical leave payments. Greg, is there anything you want to add on that one? Pretty much says it, huh?
I mean, it pretty much says it. In cases where somebody uses paid time off, if it's for a qualifying condition, right? Like then, and they're filing with the department, that's the only time that we're going to know is if they're taking PTO at the same time and they report that they're trying to top off on the benefit or something like that. But The way that it's written is that PTO we can only have one payment going out at the other. This is right back to the no topping off rule. So you have to either receive the PFML benefit or PTO. You can't have it split. You can't make up the rest of your wages using paid time off.
So we've said this about 3 or 4 different ways already. So I'm hoping that this is one that sticks with you. No PTO unless it's at the beginning of a leave or at the end. And so again, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but you do not need to report PTO used during the waiting week. In fact, it makes it easier for our team if you do not. So please do not include that information. And then we've got a screenshot here, and it shows you that we're asking only for the dates that during which you will receive PTO. So then we can then compare that with the duration of the leave and ensure that it is in fact at the beginning or the end of the leave. And one last time, the department will not pay benefits for any day on which an individual is receiving PTO from their employer. So this is a really important slide for all of you as leave administrators. This is with regard to reviewing the information that your employees provide on other leave benefits and income. And so this information is now included in the employer request for information, and this is viewable on your portal. So it's important for you to know that not only can you view this, but you can also edit it. So it's very important that you review this and make sure that it is accurate. Again, this impacts the employee and their ability to get an accurate payment amount, and it also impacts the duration of the leave. So we're not wanting to approve someone for, let's say, 12 weeks of bonding leave when they have a new child, if you, as the employer, have already offered them leave for that same reason. So we would offset that. And if you've given them a month of time off for that same qualifying reason, then we would adjust the amount of leave that we would approve based on that. So this is really important for you as an employer, so you don't wind up with an employee being out for a longer period of time than they are permitted under the statute. So, and I think I'm going to dig out one of my old time plugs here. Last year we were singing the song constantly, and as employers, you really need to have approved and verified leave administrators. If you do not, you are missing out on the opportunity to review the information that your employee provides on an application. You are an important part of our program integrity effort, and without your review of this information, we have no way to know whether it is in fact accurate, or if someone's made a mistake while entering their application. You are an important safeguard here. So if you have not completed the process of verifying yourself as a leave administrator, it's not too late. You can still do it. And we would encourage you to do so. This step is really important, both to us from a program integrity standpoint, but also from your vantage point as an employer.
So the only other thing to add on that slide is that, just to state it, it might be obvious to folks on the phone, but what you're seeing here in the date range and the leave type that's being presented in the employer response for information is populated by what your employee has told the department previously. So this does get populated based off of what your employee has told us they're going to be taking during the course of their leave. And we really are asking for employers to take a look at this, We know that you all are experts and you know your employees far better than we do. So take a look and confirm the dates that they're receiving paid time off or benefits from a paid family and medical leave program or short-term disability if it's replacing their entirety of their wages. That's the request here, is to make sure that you guys are looking at this new section in the employer response. You are able to change any of the information that is provided here. You're also able to add additional leaves or other benefits or other payments that the individual will be receiving during the course of their leave.
Good clarification there, Greg. You're right. In saying that you can edit it, what we need for you to understand is that you can edit it and you should edit it if there's information that is incomplete or incorrect there. So again, really important to making sure that the amount of payment and the amount of benefit time that your employee receives is correct. So we wanted to provide some contact information for you. This may be information that you already have, but in the event that you don't, our contact center's number is 833-344-7365, and they are open from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. We have contact center representatives that speak English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we do have multilingual services for additional languages. So if you call the contact center and you are looking for someone who speaks French, we can get someone who speaks French on the line, and they would translate the information for you. So again, that phone number is 833-344-7365. So now we're going to transition to the most important part of this, which is really hearing from you all and answering your questions. So I'm going to be working off a spreadsheet here and throwing some questions out to our team and letting them answer for you. And while I'm getting that spreadsheet up and going, I'm going to throw out a question myself. I was talking to the owner of my gym this morning when I was working out, and I said, "What would you want to know in this webinar? How could we help you?" And he said, "Give me the things I can do and the things I can't do. Just tell me what I should be reporting and what I shouldn't be reporting." Can someone take that for Paul at Coco Fitness? Greg? Aaron?
I'm a little confused what you're asking, Mary.
What I'm asking. If you were to come up with a list of things that you do need to report and things that you don't need to report, what would you say? Let's take FMLA, for example, or let's take other leaves that you've taken through PFML. What do you need to report and what do you not need to report?
So you don't need to report other leaves that have been taken through our department because we already have a record of that. So we'll already know if somebody has already filed for paid family and medical leave benefits sometime during the last year. We'll know that and we'll be able to adjust the duration appropriately. What I would probably say is I would ask you to check out our website for exact examples on which types of income to report and which types of leave to report. But Jess, you're controlling the screen, right? Can we go back, I think, like 4 slides? Let's keep going. So in each one of these sections, one more, there you go. So in each one of these sections on the website, you can see these little green check marks and these little red X marks. So we've been responding to that question on what type of income or what other types of leave do you need to report. In the website itself should give some guidance. So in employer sponsored, this is for paid time off. Jess, can we go back another one? Yeah, here's a great example of other benefits and leave. You can see workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, Social Security disability insurance, disability from a government retirement plan, Jones Act, railroad retirement benefits, and earnings from another employer or through self-employment are all ones that you should report. As you go through and you say, yes, I need to report one of these, you'll see a screen that actually lets you report what kind of income you're receiving and when. And as Mary mentioned, there are different rules with unemployment and workers' comp. It's a dollar for dollar offset. For short-term disability, it's actually offset to the average weekly wage. So I think that there's some great resources online to tell you which types of income or other leaves do need to be reported to the department. You don't need to report any previous PFML leave that has gone through DFML because we will already have a record of that.
Great, thank you, Greg. So the first question here is, what is caring leave? Is that different than family leave? I thought two options were family leave and medical leave, and this might have been a misstatement on my part. So I'm going to take the answer to this. So caring leave is a type of family leave, and you can take up to 12 weeks a year to take care of your family member, to bond with a new child, or to help with circumstances that come from a family member who is in active service. It's distinguishable from medical leave, which is to take care of your own serious medical condition. So my apologies if I messed that up a little bit, but caring leave is a type of family leave. Anybody want to expound on that, or have we got it?
I would just point out that, there are a few different types of family leave. As you mentioned, there's bonding leave for a new child, I think is the one that most people are familiar with. And all of those three main types of family leave come from the same 12-week bucket. So you can only take up to 12 weeks of any type. It could be 6 weeks of caring leave and 6 weeks of bonding leave within a benefit year, but the 12-week cap applies to all of that.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction and important to remember because there are the three different kinds of family leave. You need to make sure that you're not exceeding that 12 weeks. So another question we have here is, how does the employee fill out the application if the employer wants to do a reimbursement?
Yeah, great. So in that case, that would be reporting other leave or other income in the program, or from other wages from an employer. You would mark that as I'm receiving that during this time frame. The employer would then be able to file for a reimbursement through the employer portal.
Great, thank you, Greg. Could we talk about short-term disability versus long-term disability and how the program views that?
Yeah,
Do
I saw a
both
lot
need
of
to be
questions
reported?
up there. I saw a lot of questions popping up there. The question that you need to answer for it is the short-term disability plan replacing all of their wages or part of their wages? In most situations, the short-term disability plan is something called in excess, which means that they're paying the difference between what the department pays and their average weekly wage. The department is the first payer on these claims. So we are the first payer on these claims. Short and long-term disability should be reported. However, in instances should not be reported where short-term disability benefits are supplementing those approved PFML benefits. So in cases where the plan, like an AFLAC or a short-term provider, says that they'll cover your employees' wages up to their average weekly wage, we actually don't need to know about that. We only need to know when the benefit when we need to adjust our benefit because they're receiving 100% wage replacement.
And I also do want to address the short-term versus long-term question very quickly, if that's all right, Greg. The department really doesn't make a distinction between those two benefits. We consider both of those within the umbrella of temporary disability insurance. So both of those would have the same ramifications, whether it's a whole hog benefit where you're getting, 60% a week as the first payer, in which case you would report that to us, or if it's a top-off benefit that you wouldn't report. It doesn't matter if it's short-term or long-term disability.
Great, thank you, Erin. So we seem to be getting a lot of questions about holidays. Here's one. How do we handle holiday pay during a leave when it's part of a union contract? We haven't talked much about unions, so. Somebody could take that one, that would be great.
So two separate issues there. One on union related contracts and the other on holidays. The department pays based off of calendar weeks. We do not offset the benefit amount based off of if a holiday is within that week. So for instance, if somebody was out on leave this week and Veterans Day is on Thursday and it's a state holiday, the state government is closed, we'll still pay for Thursday. But as a direct result of that, we are not offsetting the benefits in any way during for holidays. Erin, do you have anything you want to say on the union agreements?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be such a highly specific scenario, you know, and if you're a union employer, you certainly understand a lot of the nuances that go on there. I think with respect to the payment of the benefit, you know, that's of the holiday benefit specifically, that's not something the department can specifically advise on. That would be something you'd have to discuss with the union specifically. Another point I want to address, because it seems like a lot of people raised it, is with respect to teachers and school breaks. And the department has issued guidance previously that school breaks will not count as periods to be paid benefits. And so if you are a teacher and you go on school break, for instance, you won't be paid during that time by the department, but that also won't count towards your leave allotment. And if you have a leave that starts before the school break and continues after the school break, that won't be an intermittent leave just because the school break occurs.
Right, great, thank you, Erin. Here's a question. If we're allowing employees to use sick time to make themselves whole, should they report those hours?
So that is not allowed. That is topping off. So as we said, you cannot be receiving payment from your employer for personal time off, which includes PTO, sick time, and vacation time during the time that you're receiving a benefit from the department. So that actually is not allowed to pay somebody sick time while they're out on PTO or while they're out on PFML.
Okay, here's one about whether there's a verification process for the estimated benefits. So I'm going to take the first half of this, although Greg, I know you're going to want to weigh in here on how the actual benefit rate is determined. But we do have a calculator that's available on MassGov, and you can get an estimated payment there. But I'm going to turn it over to Greg to ask you about the actual calculation of the benefits.
Yeah, so our benefits are calculated based off of wages reported to DOR. So we don't reach out to employers to confirm those wages because we have a record based off of your filings with the Department of Revenue. It's the same sort of rules that you see in the unemployment insurance agency, where it's based off of an amount of time or an amount of money that you've earned over a period of quarters. So depending on the number of quarters in which an individual has worked for you, it does have some slight variation in the amount that they would need to have earned in order to be financially eligible for benefits. And then we calculate the benefits based off of their average weekly wage. We provide 80% wage replacement up to 50% of the statewide average weekly wage, and then 50% of your average weekly wage up to 64% of the statewide average weekly wage. It's easy, but it is a calculator to be able to get you the estimates on those. But in terms of like a verification process for those wages, that actually comes through the Department of Revenue.
Great, thank you, Greg.
And if I could just jump in, because I wasn't sure if this was asking about verification of other benefits. When there's an estimated benefit, I believe on one of our slides mentioned that you shouldn't be reporting until it's a concrete number. So we wouldn't be reaching out to verify estimated benefits because we're not asking you to report when it's just when it hasn't been set in stone yet.
So I think that this one we may have clarified further along in the presentation, but there was a question about whether the screens were representing something that the employee or the employer completes. And just to reiterate, what we were showing you was snippets of the actual application form that an employee would fill out. We did at the end give you a view of the employer portal, and that's where the employer reviews the information that's provided and corrects and edits if necessary. So again, most of those screenshots were of the actual application itself. And then here's almost a follow-up to that question. What happens when there is a discrepancy when an employee fills out the application and that's not the same as what the employer provides?
Yeah, so the department defers to the employer for that information, and we will offset based off of the information provided to us by the employer regarding other leaves and income. The employee does retain their appeal rights.
Great. Let's go back to vacation for a minute. And Greg, can you talk about how you would report school vacation? That's something where we as a department don't know what those school schedules look like. Can you give us some pointers on that?
So I actually think Aaron responded to this earlier. Aaron, do you want to restate the answer on school vacation?
Well, I can certainly restate the answer. I think in terms of the operations of how to actually report it, I would defer to you or Lisa. But in terms of the policy, school vacations are not other leaves or other benefits. School vacations are sort of a separate item where the department isn't going to consider you eligible for benefits, but it also won't count against the employee's leave allotment either. So, you know, if you're a teacher and you're applying for leave 6 weeks before a school summer break starts, for instance, you could take 6 weeks and then resume after the summer break ends and take another 6 weeks of, let's say, family leave of some sort, and that would be completely acceptable and that would be treated as a continuous leave. In terms of how to report the school break, unfortunately, I think I have to defer to you on that one.
So this would have to do with the dates that the leave is actually taking place. So you would want to respond in the employer response for information with saying that during, or in the comment box at the bottom, saying that during these dates is our summer break, so that we would know to stop the benefit payments during that time.
Great, thank you. How about this one? Can the employee choose to use PTO if the benefit payment is higher?
If the benefit payment is higher? Regardless. The employee has total license to use PTO if they want to use PTO instead of receiving benefit from the department. The rule is just that we can't, you can't top off using paid time off, and that you have to either be on or off of the paid family and medical leave benefit. So you can't go on and off of the program. And to reiterate, the paid time off has to be taken in a single continuous block, either at the beginning or the end of a leave.
Great, thank you, Greg. So let's talk about short-term disability. How are employees supposed to know their short-term disability calculation before being approved? I think that may be, or how are employees supposed to know their PFML calculation before being approved?
Lisa, you've been dealing with a lot of these situations. You want to handle that one?
Yeah, so usually there's a concurrent application. You'd apply with the short-term carrier as well as with PFML. and how the carriers are handling this is that they pre-calculate the amount that you would be eligible for DFML based on the same calculation we use, and they would offset the amount, and that would be your top off. So they would deduct the PFML amount that you would be expected to get, and then that is how they would calculate how much they would pay you up to your average weekly wage. You know, let's say your average weekly wage is $1,000, and what they would do is they'd calculate out saying, okay, you are owed $600 a week by PFML. So they would say that from us, the short-term carrier, you would be due $400 because you can be paid up to $1,000. That's your cap. I've seen carriers pre-approve that amount, and then the PFML kicks in after. Or depending on how you want to do it, you can apply for the PFML and then apply for your short-term carrier, and it's a matter of order of operations, but the equation is the same. You'd be paid a PFML amount where the first payor, and then the short-term carrier can top off up to your average weekly wage.
Right. So just to reiterate, then PFML pays first, and then the short-term disability kicks in. Is that right?
Yes. It's just sometimes the short-term if you apply, it might come out quicker. So you might get that top off before you get our checks, let's say.
Next question is, typically our leaves are 100% paid, and we reduce their pay based on the benefits they will receive from the state. How should that be reported when the employee files their application?
So what you're hitting on here is the employer reimbursement process, right? Erin, you're looking at me weird, like maybe I'm wrong here.
Well, it sounded to me like what was being described was an employer top off, like it's 100% benefit, and then you reduce based on the PFML benefit received to ensure they receive 100% of wages. And in that case, if it's truly a top off and you're not going to be seeking reimbursement and you're really just trying to make the employee whole on top of the PFML benefit, you wouldn't need to report that. But if it is like Greg said, where you want to pay the 100% benefit and then get reimbursed by the department, that would be the process you're talking about.
Yeah, sorry to kind of cloud the water there, but it depends on how you're doing that, right? Like whether you're paying them and you're not taking it out of their own personal time off, or if you have a dedicated plan, either a private plan through a provider or a self-insured plan. If you have a self-insured paid family medical leave plan for which your company policy is that you pay 100% of the wages, and they apply with us and they tell us that, or you tell us that during the employer response for information, then you could be eligible for the department to actually reimburse you directly for the amount that we would have paid the claimant.
And if I could just address one other aspect of this, because there seems to be some confusion between the distinction between topping off PTO, which is not allowed, and topping off of an employer-sponsored plan, which is allowed. An employer-sponsored plan is something like it could be short-term disability, or it could be family leave that you're topping off an employee's pay a certain amount in addition to PFML benefits. That's distinct from accrued pay time off, which is, you know, your sick leave, your vacation leave. You can top off with short-term disability or family medical leave, something that's for a qualifying reason under the PFML law, which is intended to most likely run the same time period and not be the sort of on-off situation as with PTO.
Great, thank you, Erin. This question asks, what if you pay someone until they are approved? An employee has been waiting, so we paid them and thought we could get reimbursed. Anybody?
Repeat that, Mary? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Absolutely. Yep. What if you pay someone until they are approved? An employee has been waiting, so we paid them and thought we could get reimbursed.
If you pay them, it has to be an employer-sponsored plan. So if you just covered them until they were paid by us, like you just paid them on payroll, that's not reimbursable. Not by us. Between you and the employee is another question, not for us.
Here's another one that's along the same line, if an employee was accidentally paid while they were also receiving PFML benefits, what is the best course of corrective action? They report that income received to the contact center?
So they were accidentally paid on payroll, or they accidentally didn't report that they were paid? I didn't catch the first part.
Well, I don't know, but it says if an employee was accidentally paid while they
If
were
they were
receiving benefits.
if they were accidentally paid, there's two routes. The employee can pay back the employer, or it can be reported to PFML through the call center, either by the employee or the employer, and we will enter an overpayment on the case. And they will have to eventually pay us back.
We've got a question here about the appeal process and how it works. The question is, my employee is requesting a letter to appeal his PFML denial. We did not top off with PTO, vacation, or sick. What needs to be included in this letter?
So they don't need a letter to appeal. You can do it online actually. They just fill out the information and it's pretty easy. They can call the call center if they want to file it over the phone. Someone will do the data entry for them, but we encourage everyone to just go online and click on the link, and they can just enter the case number that they were denied and enter the rationale, and it'll go right to the appeals department. We have a reconsideration level in our appeals department that a majority of cases are resolved without having to go to a hearing. And it sounds like if that's the case, that might be the case that I'm hearing, where there's just a discrepancy on how the information was entered. So it can cases like that can usually be resolved without having to go to a hearing. But we would recommend that you go through the link on our website to file an appeal. It's harmless, takes less than 5 minutes, and it'll put you into that trajectory.
Great, thanks, Lisa. What is the waiting week? I referred to the waiting week during the presentation. Anybody want to take that?
So the first 7 days of your leave are unpaid. We only start paying after the second week of leave has been completed. In private industry, it's also known as an elimination period, but the 7-day period, the 7-day waiting week is part of the statute.
And follow up, is the first day the first payday, or does that include the 7-day waiting period? I think what this is asking is the 7-day waiting period begins on the first day of leave, correct? And that is true also for intermittent leave situations.
Yeah, so it's 7 calendar days from the date of first absence is your waiting week.
Right. All right. Here's an editorial comment and a question. That is so confusing. Yes, it is. Why ask for PTO dates when you say they cannot use PTO during PFML and you said not to report waiting period?
Yeah, so the deal here is that folks can decide on whether it's not that you can't use PTO, it's that you can't use it at the same time as PFML benefits. So what we're asking for in that screen, and Jess, can we go back to that screen where we have the date range? One more. Yeah, here. What we're asking, there we go. Yeah. So what we're asking for here is, when is this individual going to be on your payroll? So when do we need to not send them a check for benefits coming from the department? So you don't need to report the waiting week here, and whether you're paying them through PTO or whatever other means, we don't need to know about it because we don't need to offset our benefit payments. But what we're asking for is, during the course of your leave, in a single continuous block, are you receiving any paid time off from your employer? And what days are those, so that we know to offset as appropriate?
Thank you. We've got one or two more here, and then we'll wrap it up. Does the system retain previous approved leave dates?
Yes, it does.
So that would be any previous PFML leave that's retained by the system, correct?
Yep, any leave that was previously reported to the system. So even if your employee reported FMLA during a previous leave that was also a PFML claim, as long as it has been submitted to the department before, we keep a record of it.
And I'm going to end this on a high note. This next question is, there are a lot of great questions. Will you be generating an FAQ based on the questions in the chat? And the answer to that is yes. You will, in the next few days, be receiving a link to this recording as well as the deck itself. And then I would estimate probably the following week, you will receive a list of the questions asked and the answers to those questions. So we're going to be getting the deck and information out to you pronto, but within a week or so, we will get all of these questions and answers out to you. So we hope that if we didn't get a chance to address your question here this afternoon, we'll get that answer out to you within the next week. So I would like to take this opportunity to again thank you all for being with us today. We're very grateful for your time and attention. And of course, I want to thank my colleagues for providing some background information to that that was provided in the actual deck here. Your context and details were really helpful. So again, many thanks. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and we'll look forward to the next time we talk.